What the fuck is up on a Wednesday? We have made it. Thanks, Satan. We have made it to the middle of the week. We're almost to the weekend, and it's time to put away everything that you're doing, children of the night, and start sharing this broadcast out anywhere and everywhere, because tonight we have the great Magister Bill M. of the Satan Splain YouTube show. And also the Devil's Mischief, which I understand is celebrating its 20th anniversary.
That's right. I put out one initial episode of some stuff from the past, but I'm going to be putting out more to celebrate 20 years. Probably maybe once in a while for the rest of this year. So
awesome. And we'll definitely be covering that a little bit more, and we got some really good humorous things. We all like to get back at those folks that always do us wrong. Well, we definitely are going to cover that in great length today. So before we get started, we're going to take a quick commercial break to our brothers in the UK over at Poison Valley Clothing. Check it out. Allahu Akbar. All right. Yeah, absolutely. The best custom horror designs, as well as all the great bands that he makes shirts for all over the world. So check him out there at Poison Valley Clothing on Facebook, and get you a badass shirt for a low price and fast shipping. All right. It's time to, tell your partner, your mother, your father, well, maybe not grandma, but it is time for us to welcome back Magister Bill M. of Satan Splain, Church of Satan. How are you doing tonight, brother?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Anytime. So we were talking just a little bit before about how we like to get back at those that say stupid things to us, and nobody gets more interesting messages than you do. And I as well get quite a few. I get at least told you need Jesus 2 or 3 times a day on any of my given social media accounts. So what do you have for us tonight, brother?
So to begin, I just got to give a little disclaimer. When it comes to dealing with, trolls and other people like that online, I know there are people who will say, I'm just wasting my time, that, I'll never change their minds by arguing with them. I'm just validating them by giving them attention. And, people are like, well, I would never do that. I just ignore them. Okay. But the way I see it, I'm having fun. And people who
it is fun.
Follow my channel are having fun. People follow your channel or the Church of Satan on Twitter. I mean, there are a lot of people who follow Church of Satan on Twitter who aren't Satanists, but they just, love the.
They just have to see what the other side's up to.
Yeah. And it's true, people won't change their minds necessarily if you debate them online, but at least not overnight. There may be onlookers who may be seeing all this and don't know anything about it, but may say, okay, I see now that this person makes more sense than that person. So could have an effect.
Absolutely.
Just more final disclaimers. I don't go seeking people to argue with. There's no shortage of people you can disagree with. You can find online. And people will say, well, who cares if somebody believes in something different? Well, I care if they're saying something about my religion, because if they're saying something about Satanism that's false, well, then you're saying something about me that's false. And so I have a vested interest, kind of in that.
Absolutely. And some of
Yeah.
them are just out and out ridiculous.
Yeah. And plus you get to sharpen your skills for debating and, witty put downs and stuff. And I think it's
always got to fight the good fight with the keyboard warriors.
Yeah. So that's my disclaimer. Oh, and I also get some Dr. Shit's memes out of it sometimes too. So that's another bonus, coming back to people. So
absolutely. And I enjoy every single one of those
so
much. So what are we starting with first?
Okay.
Also, welcome to the show, Todd and Kyler. Thank you for joining us, and everybody else out there in Black Flame Land. Don't be silent. Don't be afraid to say hello. Okay? We like interaction. Don't be afraid to interact with Magister Bill. He's an awesome motherfucking human, so don't be afraid.
We're going to show just the exact opposite, and the examples coming
well,
up. Yeah, you know what I mean. So yeah, there's no shortage of trolls and other idiots out there. I know, but once in a while, you get somebody that's screenshot worthy. And so what I've done is I've selected, I think, like 9 examples just from the past month or two of like people I've run into. And I know some people were expecting this to be all Christians, and they're not. In fact, first, I think we have an atheist at the example. So atheists, which, you and I are, technically, we don't believe in deities. That makes us atheists. Atheists of the more, let's say, the Reddit variety, the kind of militant atheists, they say they're critical thinkers and they only base things on evidence. But you see some examples of where being an atheist is no guarantee of intelligence. And sure. I think I've had at least 3 different atheists this year think I was a Christian. It seems that, I was going to say, it seems to happen like if I say something critical of, Kevin Solling's outfit, or if I say anything politically right of Rosie O'Donnell, So take a look at this screenshot. This first one here, one I think was an example here. So yeah, this was a guy who was saying, are you a Christian? What denomination do you actually align to say this? And the question is how would you know that me, Satan's plane responding on there, how do you know I'm not really a Christian? Well, if we go to the next screenshot here, I get some subtle examples. So if you look at my profile, you can see I've got a couple of satanic things going on that might indicate that, yeah, I'm not really a Christian. It's like, yeah, Sigil Baphomet, Satan in the name, the Church of Satan, Magister title, and all
it's clearly there.
But we still run into people who think I'm a Christian. Okay. All right. I don't have a screenshot, but there was also a Christian who thought I was a left-wing woman. I think like when you're obsessed with anything, you start seeing that everywhere. Like the old expression, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
A left-wing woman.
Yeah, it's like.
Has it really gotten that bad?
Apparently, yeah. And in the same hour, I can get accused of being alt-right or some so. Put my finger on it and say.
Kyler says, I can't put my finger on it. I don't think you're a Christian, LOL. And he also has a question also. He says, I've actually been thinking about a question for a while. How many satanic symbols are there? That's a long
Yeah.
list, man.
Yeah. Especially through, we saw during the Satanic Panic, any strange logo was considered, a satanic symbol. A friend of mine had a logo drawn on his skateboard, and somebody at the time had asked him if it was a satanic symbol, and he'd explained no, it was a logo for the pop band, The Outfield. It was saying your love. It looked like a baseball diamond, but satanic symbol, apparently. Right.
Anything that's like out of the norm back then,
yeah,
they just automatically thought it was demonic or demonized.
Yeah. and it's kind of the same way now, but everybody sees something and says it's racist. So it's the same kind of mentality, I think, this ideologically gripped thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So just moving on to another example. So usually when a Satanist corrects misinformation about Satanism, people will try to justify the misinformation with, well, that's just what you call Satanism, Bill. You can't say what Satanism is or isn't because you're being a gatekeeper. And as I think I said last time on the show, it's like, yeah, I am a gatekeeper, because if you're going to, be saying stuff about my religion.
Yes. I love your
I try
answer
explaining
here.
Yeah, it's like it's not anything goes here. So the analogy I used here, this guy Alex is an atheist, and he's saying like, well, you can't say and what Satanism is or isn't. And so the analogy I used is, okay, if I ate pork, drank beer, and I slept with other men, and I called that practicing Islam, surely you would see that that's inaccurate. Do you see what I'm trying to get at? And he said no. It could be Islam, but it gets better. He argued that because religion is made up, then therefore anything is acceptable to be called any religion. that was this atheist's reasoning. So if we go to like the next screenshot I've got here.
Oh, yep, I can get that.
I think I took
Just trying to keep up with our friends here.
Yeah. Okay. And so I gave an example. Okay. So it's like, according to this logic, since Star Trek and Star Wars are human inventions, isn't it wrong to say though that Captain Kirk flew the Millennium Falcon or Darth Vader was on the Enterprise? Like, no, do you understand, like, from this analogy why you're wrong with that? And he said no, like that could be true because it Millennium Falcon's not real, so it's equally valid to say Darth Vader flew it. And I just said, like, can you imagine if this guy was in an English class?
It was pretty bad, I have to say.
If you ask this person to write a paper on Desdemona, on Othello, and he says, well, Desdemona and Othello had an affair with Superman and Wonder Woman, and then I wonder why he got an F. You couldn't fall back and say, well, Othello is fictional, so anything I say can go. So that's crazy. Another crazy example. I'm sorry.
Courtney, that's crazy.
In the chat
Courtney
here?
Webb says, I got called Satan by a modified clown man, all because I said the rainbow have many meanings. He thought the rainbow was grooming kids to be gay. Yeah. What in the actual fuck?
Christians say the rainbow represents, God's covenant with Noah and not flooding the earth. Then you have people that say the rainbow means LGBT. I reject both of them. I say the rainbow represents Ronnie James Dio. That's my metal take.
Forever and ever, he was the man on the Silver Mountain.
Yeah,
and should be hoisted. You ready for the next one?
Yeah. So Satanic Rule of the Earth #1 says, do not give your opinions unless asked. And every once in a while, there's a Christian who says, well, you're on social media, you're replying to my post, so you're breaking rule #1. And I say, no, We are not breaking rule number 1 because our opinion is being asked. Because if you look on Twitter, there's a reply field. We are literally being asked to give our opinions or advice. It's social media. We are not breaking rule number 1. We are being asked.
Well, we're not a fucking secret society,
Yeah.
I mean, and we're not, keeping people from giving their opinions, but when they're this bad, oh, you're getting clowned.
So it mentioned Dr. Shits. One of the things I do on Dr. Shits is I try to make memes that other Satanists can use for snarky responses sometimes. And so
I love this one.
There's a lot of people I see online who are saying, oh, the Church of Satan is doing this. You guys are bad. And we say, no, that's not us. And, oh, yeah, well, then explain this. And then they post a link to something about the Satanic Temple. So I made this really simple 4-step diagram you can post in response to people who do this. So 1, look at the name of the organization you're talking to, Church of Satan. Look at the name of the organization in the article and notice those 2 don't match. And 4 final advice then.
Yeah, I would definitely say slap yourself for being stupid.
It's like when people post their things that this is proof, and it's like, did you read it on the headline? No.
Oh, but those are my favorites though. It's just like the store that I own, Little Owl Mystics. They sent me, this one church sent me a letter that had all these Bible verses about why witchcraft is in fact evil, the devil, all this stuff. And it's like, really? Then why do Christians shop in my store?
You guys have to get amongst yourselves and sort that one out.
Right.
Christian witches do exist. I used to work in Salem, in Mass, doing tarot readings, and there was a Christian witch. I got along fine with her. And it's sort of like, well, how can she justify blah, blah, blah? Like, I don't know. You have to ask her. It's not my problem.
They're just stealing what's popular.
Yeah. So speaking of Christians, one accusation we often get, particularly from Christians, is that Satanists only attack Christianity. And to that, I say I'm just as anti-Muslim or anti-Buddhist as I am anti-Christian. But here's another Dr. Shits meme I have. You can use in response to people, who are saying, "Oh, you only focus on Christianity." Really, the infernal names. We've got these rituals and satanic rituals. With that, we say Shem Hem Farash. It's a Hebrew thing. We have to write Ragnarok. So but
it's them who are focusing on us all the time. Yeah. We don't go looking for those assholes. We don't have to. They come to our fucking door.
Yeah. And I think that would be the reason. It's like, well, why don't you attack, Hindus as much? It's like, well, they're not usually shoving tracts into my door and, trying to change laws and stuff. So.
No leaflets. They don't want to come in for fucking tea, and talk about, Muhammad or whoever, Abraham, Yeah. It's like, do you see me coming to your door? Actually, you might want me to come to your door. It'd be a great party.
But the anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist brought up a tweet from 4 years ago that the Church of Satan made, and this picture won't make any sense until I explain it. But so the Church of Satan was asked if we have Jews, and it's like, well, it depends, of course, what you mean by Jews. Do you mean people whose religion is Judaism? No, our religion is Satanism, not Judaism. If by Jews you mean people of Jewish ethnicity, then yeah, I mean, what group doesn't have some people of Jewish ethnicity? But, of course, the conspiracy theorists say, oh, see, this proves it. I'm not surprised at all that the Church of Satan would have Jews. And it's
in that voice.
What? Yeah. Like, what's the voice I hear it in my head when I read some of these things? But proves what? Where do you make that leap in logic? And so some Christian digs up this, this tweet from 4 years ago, the Church Satan made, and this one guy, he kept challenging us to prove him wrong, and say something bad about the Talmud, because he was convinced that Satanism and Judaism were, in bed together. This, proved it, and he wouldn't believe me unless I said something bad about the Talmud. Now, the Talmud is not the same as the Hebrew Scriptures. It's like a collection of stuff written by rabbis in later centuries of how do you do things in certain holidays, how do you resolve, this Levitican law if it's a conflict with this kosher law or whatever.
Exactly.
So him and his cohorts kept pestering us, kept pestering me, and it's insisting again that the fact LeVay had Jewish ethnicity is somehow proof of something. So I said, fine, challenge accepted. I flipped through an English translation of the Talmud, and I said, okay, this thing says they believe in Jehovah. Well, in Satanism, we don't believe in any gods. Here's the page number of Satanic Bible where we say this. And I just went through with 12 different examples. It was a fun learning experience. I like being systematic like that. And I just kept doing this with different examples, different page numbers to show, what already would have been obvious, that Satanism and Judaism are not the same religion and therefore don't agree on things. But to show you that last picture that had the steak and cheese, I realized after I made that list, I was like, oh, wait a minute, there is that, I was eating a steak and cheese at the time, and I was like, oh, wait, I made that post yesterday saying I disagreed with the Talmud, and I know that this isn't kosher. So I took a photo to go add to it, just to further.
I definitely got it, believe me, as soon as I seen it. Todd says, now Todd is a new Satanist. Yay. Thank you, Todd. He says, Reaper and I have discussed the negative depiction of Satan, Baphomet, and the devil in extreme metal. Do you see satanic metalheads as deceptive? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing really new. You can, go back 30 or 40 years and find bands using satanic imagery just for the shock value and stuff like that. The very first time I even saw, I think, a pentagram ever was my friend had the Motley Crue "Shout at the Devil" album. I saw it on the sleeve, and I didn't know. I thought it was a star, but so it not something I particularly like, but it's something that I think I don't really have any control over. People are going to say that, and if they get some kind of empowerment out of those symbols and stuff, I mean, could it be argued maybe there is something satanic to be said about that? I mean, I'm sure the thing happens on the other end too, where you have people who wear crosses who aren't Christians at all. They just think it's a cool piece of jewelry or something.
Oh, yeah.
Sure there are Christians who likewise say,
just like Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Which the only reason they even wore it in the first place was because Ozzy's dad made all the band members these crosses, and somehow they made it darker and cool to wear. So
for me personally, it's like when I see Black Sabbath, for example, wearing crosses, I don't think Christianity. I think crosses as in graveyards and
exactly. I mean, that is the doom and gloom.
Yeah, the doom and gloom churches and stuff like that in horror movies, and that was where they were coming from. It's like they weren't Satanists and they weren't devout Christians either. They were these blue collar workers in the streets of Birmingham. Yeah. Geezer Butler studied some cult, but that was about it.
Oh, Geezer Butler was the guy who was really far up the occult in that band, which was awesome. He was also their principal lyricist. But I think personally for me in black metal, and we've talked about this before, anything blasphemous, I'm all for it. If they want to get that extreme and, obviously there's a bit of theater to it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Do we necessarily think that they believe that, there's this big pit of the abyss,
Mhm.
and the unholy red one will come out of it. No,
Yeah.
it's not how that works.
There have been some people who've stumbled across Satanism from that, purely
Oh, very much
theatrical
so. Yeah.
aesthetic. I've heard from people who, wanted to get, the Satanic Bible as a prop just to freak some people out, or like as a joke. And then they read it and they were like, hey, wait a minute. I actually agree with a
This
lot
makes
of this
sense.
stuff. Let me look more into it. Yeah. So you never know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like that. We push away that if that's your way to finding enlightenment, then cool.
Yeah. So yeah, who should show up to this thread with the anti-Semites, but a devil worshiper? I think from Temple of Set. So he jumps in on the anti-Semitism thing too. Okay, whatever. But then this guy comes in, and he says like, "Oh, Anton LaVey didn't do anything original. He just made a mishmash of things. A mishmash of things." It says the guy with a Bible verse name, an Egyptian hieroglyph, and an alchemy symbol for his name. Okay. And so,
Um,
yeah, go on.
Nothing says more mix mash than that.
Yeah,
That's two completely different paths.
yeah. And, I mean, that's fine if people want, get some kind of aesthetics kick out of that, or, want to have a picture like that. But for him to like put it on and then like accuse me of like being an edgelord, he made at least like 10 arguments and like he lost every single one of them, but that one was a big kicker. And he also accused me of being what was it, a mall goth coattail rider.
The fuck?
Yeah, go back to that picture.
Tell us what that means.
The guy who's and he says this against me, the guy whose profile is in banana yellow. All right. And then so since he's losing arguments, he goes over the Facebook to look for photos of me and photos of anybody else who jumped in. And he's saying, "Oh, look at the face. This is the face of the Church of Satan." And he posts the photos, trying to say we're the only people who show up on Twitter, and we're somehow all the same. Yeah, all the same. Okay, so Milden, a UK goth liberal in his 20s from the UK, and then an industrial DJ, and me, a 40-year-old, kind of right-wing guy. Like, we're all the same. Okay. And he says Anton LaVey would be rolling in his grave to see people like this. Why? Me? It's because I wear a hat? What? Well, no, it can't be because of the hat, because he wears a hat in his profile. So, I don't know. He hates the sunglasses? Oh, okay. I don't know. It's just baffling at times. All right. Getting back
We're
to the
not
Christians.
all going to look the same. There's no like preconceived image that we're going to project. I mean, I take it a step further, but then I kind of introduce the horror element to what I do. But at the end of the day, there's no one single face of a Satanist. We come from different worlds. We do different things. I was a school teacher for 24 years. Nobody knew. Why? Because you can't identify. Oh, yeah. I mean, shit, if my jewelry was flying, of course, I'd be in the principal's office, but,
I think, like, what happens is for a lot of people, the only person they've ever met in real life who said, quote, "I'm a Satanist," was one strange kid they knew in middle school who was, just an outsider, just a rebel who wore pentagrams, listened to whatever aggressive music was in the day, maybe didn't really know much of anything beyond that. And maybe ended up, going
just
into
for shock value.
Yeah. And, but, it's because of that, you see these people like, well, Satanists are all blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're kind of basing that off of that one kid you knew 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, what would it be like if we just all walked around in black robes?
Yeah. But getting back to the Christians,
Yes.
one card they sometimes try to play when they're losing an argument is, oh, well, you're a Satanist. That means you worship the Prince of Lies. And that means anything you say is a lie. And well, I have a simple stock response to this, which is in the next screenshot. And you may have seen this on Dr. Shitz. And so if I'm the Prince of, if I'm a liar, I simply state, okay, your mother is not a whore. And just sit back and let's see how they reason with that. So if anybody tries playing that line with you, oh, you're a Satanist, so that means you're a liar and you worship the Prince of Lies, blah blah blah. Feel free to steal that response. Use it as a comeback if you like. Or make
Not to mention, there's a reason we call their god a false god. Yeah. Or Sky Daddy, whatever you prefer.
Yeah. The funny thing about that particular guy is that he suddenly got all guilt trippy with me. Like he was insulting us and calling us every name in the book, but then one mother joke he suddenly gets all offended and oh, you had to go so low to say that. Okay.
I mean, something as simple as that is that's what pulls your strings. Okay, you're a bitch.
It's the internet and jumped into a flame war. Like, get thicker skin. So yeah, a couple more examples. This is some people might have seen this. So there's a podcast that's run by a couple of Christians. It's called Cultish, and they claim to explore like different cults and expose them. And recently they did an episode on Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan. And people were sending me the link, sending me to, take a look. And I'm thinking like, oh, I don't know if I want to slug through this, but I'm like, okay, I'll take a look, watch it at faster speed. It's a great feature of YouTube. So the hosts are Christians, and it went about as bad as you can imagine. They did zero research. Their guest was a guy who claims to have been a member of the Church of Satan. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. And he was rattling off different stuff. Some of it was accurate, but then there was a lot that was just absolute BS. So I called them out on it in Twitter. I made replies. Okay, this is in this timestamp. You say this doesn't make any sense, and so on. Do my Satan-splaining thing. And the guest said he had to. The guest they had on the show claimed he had to give his contact information to the Church of Satan for his relatives, and that made it hard to quit because of a cult. And we don't ask for that in the Church of Satan. We don't ask. We don't care where your mother lives. Anyway,
you could be in fucking Timbuktu and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, so they compare the Church of Satan to the Manson family. Again, no connection. The guest said
how does that happen?
The guest was saying LaVey was advocating blind, uncontrolled hedonism. He didn't. He says,
I'm so sick of that argument.
Directions on worshiping Satan were written down somewhere. Okay, where? So he's saying all this stuff, and the hosts just take his word for it.
Sure.
And the guest says that the Church of Satan is sexist and patriarchal, which is funny when you consider Blanche Barton was high priestess at some point. So, okay.
Yeah.
And the host brings up, of course, they bring up the Church of Satan. So, and of course, they bring up Aleister Crowley because every Christian, when they talk about Satanism, has to bring up Aleister Crowley. But the host But the host, how did he pronounce? He pronounced his name Aleister Crowley or something. like he phonetically read it out.
I was even corrected once that no, his last name is Crowley.
Crowley. Okay. Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm gonna turn into flames.
Yeah.
But I guess Ozzy got it wrong in Mr. Crowley.
Yeah. Well, I go by the Ozzy song. This is the story.
Exactly.
But yeah, so anyway, on and on it goes, and and he says, well, and their only response is like, well, make sure you critique part two of our episode two. I'm like, why is it as bad as part one? Well, you'll have to listen to see. But why? It's not like you're gonna, do any research or correct anything you said. And they said, well, we're going to do a follow-up episode with the same guest to respond to, cross-examine all these things, all the pushback we got. And the Church of Satan account responded back is like, you're supposed to start with the research and do the cross-examining before you actually publish the episode. But hey, it's like, why do research when you can just get things wrong the first time and then do a follow-up episode and get twice as many clicks?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they kept whining, and we kept calling them out. And the last screenshot, what they ended up doing is they ended up pulling the episodes. So it was I was very surprised by that. So that was a good ending.
Well,
what
sure,
I found
because I don't think they expected anyone to tell them that, guess what? You guys are fucking stupid. You got it wrong.
Yeah. What I found interesting, though, is that the only likes that their posts got in the thread, you go to the next picture here. I saved a screenshot of this. Yeah, they were all porn bots. So it was porn bots that was giving them the Christian posts the likes.
No, really?
Make of that what you will. I don't know.
I ain't surprised.
Okay, so last example, we get this Christian troll who keeps harping over and over on his claims that Satanists kidnap children, pedophiles, and all these other sorts of things. And he kept digging down no matter how many times he was disproved. And a particular thing he kept saying was that as part of Satanism, high-ranking members eat feces. And he was saying this over and over again, that it was starting to get suspicious. So sure enough, I did a search on his timeline for just the word feces, and it's like he's pretty obsessed with this idea.
Yeah.
Fellow doth protest much. And
almost wonder if he has a kink for it.
Yeah, it would explain a lot. Where's Freud when you need him? So yeah. And anyway, so those are just 9 examples of some of the things I run into in social media, and I'm sure other people have run into very similar people, maybe even worse. And again, you can ignore these people, and sometimes I just do ignore them, but you can have sadistic fun with them too, and responding and all that, and get some fun things to share.
Honestly, I feel that if someone just randomly attacks you because of something you're wearing, maybe it's a t-shirt, or they don't like the way your fucking hair looks, don't be afraid. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to school them on what they're calling you. And if you are a Satanist, oh man, don't,
Yeah.
Anton said it best, you get them back with a fucking sledgehammer. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to tell them about themselves, and you can do it in a very, what I call chop them down at the knees, but with a smile.
Yeah.
Just by giving them the actual facts.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of responses out here in the comment section. Let me see here. Let's check this out. Todd says, please discuss the myths about animal sacrifice, which gained a lot of traction during the Satanic Panic.
Yeah, so I think a lot, and this kind of goes, it's funny because this kind of goes back to the anti-Semitism thing. A lot of those myths are kind of recycled anti-Semitic myths that were, I think, based on the observation that, the Jewish people have these rituals for kosher laws, preparing animals and stuff for that. And the idea of animal sacrifice is something you might find maybe in some older, pagan traditions and stuff as well. But it's hard to try to sort that out from the Christian propaganda. But did come around, of course, to Satanism, even in the earliest days, even before the Satanic Panic. It was a stereotype, and we're very clear that it has not only nothing to do with Satanism, but the whole idea is antithetical to Satanism, as the Satanic Bible explains, because Satanism is a religion about the self, glorification of the self. And first of all, if you're sacrificing something to make you feel better, that's kind of a sign of a weak ego, to do that.
Yes.
I'm sure some people will say, oh, well, you just did that now for the past half hour by, slamming people. It's like, well, these people came up to me and were trying to, attack. And it wasn't to boost my ego. It's to have some laughs. But and also, second of all, it's Satanism is about the carnal. And if you're sacrificing an animal, to that's completely antithetical to praising the carnal.
And I think it's really funny because you can read the Bible cover to cover. There's animal sacrifices all over the fucking place.
Yeah. And of course, what makes matters worse is you do have people who style themselves after Christian propaganda. They think they're a Satanist or something else because, they read the literature. Oh, this is what the evil people do, and I'm going to copy what I saw this or saw in a horror movie or whatever.
I am so glad that you brought that up because, pop culture and films, as much as we love them, especially horror films, they're so fucking wrong. And it gets tied to us, but yet people feel like they resonate with this, but are disappointed when they read the Satanic Bible because there's nothing in there about that. Just like the whole thing. Why is there such an let's tell everybody out there, for a lot of them that aren't Satanists, but are obviously very open-minded. Why do you feel that they constantly say that we sacrifice children or something constantly about children, eating children, any of that shit? Where did that come from?
Well, I think it comes from, just a general fear about protecting children. It's a very natural fear. Parents are always concerned about their children, and
sure, absolutely.
Even adults who don't have children do feel, there's this biological responsibility on, protecting the youth and all that. So when you have any kind of fear of things, this thing is targeting children, then I think you have more prone to paranoia than you may have when it's a concern with something like that.
Absolutely. You don't see us on the corner, outside the car wash with signs saying "Join Satan today."
Yeah.
So we're not. There's no recruiting, folks.
No. And the Church of Satan is restricted to membership 18 years or older. And it's not because there aren't some teenagers who understand Satanism. There are some adults who will never get it. There are some teenagers who may be really young but far more intelligent than their peers, and they get it. But as we say, like, the reality of the world is, we operate in a society where minors are more or less the product, the ownership of their parents. They have the responsibility of that. And we also get plenty of accusations about, indoctrinating, the children and all that. So we say, give us a call when you're 18. In the meantime, you can read and explore, live your life, do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think parents do more brainwashing actually than any true Satanist ever would. Here's a really good question. What is the difference between the laws of Satanism and Wicca?
Well, the thing about Wicca is, Wicca was originally started in the 1950s by Gerald Gardner, in wanting to go, make a religion that was new and old at the same time. So trying to pull from the archetypes and certain things of mythology that he liked and all that, and do it in a witchcraft setting. One thing about Wicca is that it seems to change almost from author to author of
Doesn't
what
it?
the principles are. Yeah. And I mean, the laws of Wicca, the only thing I can think of is like the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what you will, or the threefold law. If you do something bad, it will come back to you 3 times. Good, come back to you 3 times. And neither of those things, I think, apply in Satanism. We say right in, Satanic Statement number 5, Satanism represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. And so we don't, have a problem with vengeance when it's deserved in there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And LeVay goes into detail about this in the Satanic Bible, and I think it makes a lot of sense. He believes that the notion of getting things back threefold, if you curse somebody, it's like, well, just think of this from a purely psychological point of view. If you put yourself in the ritual and you're pouring your heart and soul out to destroy an enemy, and then it happens in real life and you regret it, then that psychology in your mind of, that guilt is certainly going to, eat away at you, and, probably will feel 3 times as bad in that way.
Yeah, it's not really different. I think that's just a basic human law at that point.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes back to the point in Satanic Ritual. Make sure you're going in there with, your purpose in mind of what it is you set out to do. Not don't self-sabotage yourself afterwards by, thinking the opposite when results you wanted come in.
Absolutely. So, here's one. Todd says, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 3 years and they still sacrifice animals.
Yeah, and it's not Satanism, so go figure.
But yet we're always getting,
yeah,
burned at the stake for this shit.
Yeah. The one who asked the J.D. Kirkpatrick, who asked about Satanism Wicca, he mentions Ray Buckland, for example. I think there are some authors are a little more sane than others. I mean, Buckland, I thought, even if it was a Wiccan, and obviously I would have my religious disagreements with him, but I thought he wrote books pretty well and was doing a lot of stuff before anybody else was, and I thought he had a good way of getting to the point of, things he did without too much esoteric jumping around. But then you get like Silver Ravenwolf.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
I will never suggest somebody new to their path, of being a witch, that is a good go-to book.
I had somebody ask in a forum, I don't understand all the hate, against Silver Ravenwolf. And I said, well, it's kind of like going to a punk bar and saying, like, hey guys, I listen to Blink 182. So you can, you can hear the record scratch in the middle of that and the conversation stop. In one of her books, she even said, there are all these different kinds of witches. There are Gardnerian witches and this and that. And when it came to the entry on satanic witches, all she said was, there are no satanic witches because witches don't believe in Satan. She could have gone on and said, well, there's this book, The Satanic Witch, and there's a form of witchcraft called glamour witchcraft, which takes a materialistic approach and blah blah blah. But no, she's not going to do that. In fact, going back to like the Satanic Panic, Wiccans were spreading lies about the Satanic Panic almost as badly as Christians were at the time. They would say, "Oh no, we don't sacrifice animals and worship the devil. Satanists do that."
And it's really, really interesting because, Gardner was very much a hippie. And I don't know, the way I always kind of viewed it, I studied like all that stuff and just really kind of came to know that he was just interested in getting his hands on more ass than he probably ever could. So he came up with this, uh, you know, idea of Wicca, which of course got popularized because he wrote the book. Um, Honestly, any like traditional earthly witch, um, and especially Anton's work on the Satanic Witch, it's all about using your own energy and how to manipulate situations and stuff like that. And then there's the herbal witch, or what we call the green witch, that works
Mhm.
with different herbs, crystals, stuff like that. That's what it was back then. So where do you think Gardner got these kind of crazy ideas from?
It's hard to say. I think, as with any philosopher, any creator of a religion, he had his own share of influences, and so you did have Thelema and other things like that. I don't know if I don't know enough about his background to know if that was a direct influence or not, but
Mm-hmm. I
he
don't think he
certainly
ever
didn't.
really said.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know, again, that with Wicca, you do have a lot of people who are where it's almost completely different sometimes from book to book, and so yeah, it can get pretty strange. And as I may have confessed before, I was actually a devout Wiccan back in high
Yeah.
school, if you believe that. And one of the things I didn't like about it was that it was so kind of too loosely organized and too different, from book to book, and didn't seem to have too much practical blueprint on how to do things through the day to day world. I'm sure there's some Wiccans who would think otherwise, but and of course the threefold law and that stuff I found to be irrational in the end. So it was something I gradually lost interest in.
Absolutely. Um, Welcome, JD. Not Kirkpatrick. Obviously, you've been here the whole time. Thank you.
Yeah.
But other JD has shown up.
Yep.
Glad to have you here, brother. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry you've had 12 teeth pulled today, but you joined us, and we appreciate you. Do you have any
Yeah.
questions for Magister Bill M? Feel free to ask them.
I'm scrolling through, and I saw. Let me see. I did see a question here, actually, from JD Kirkpatrick, saying, "I wish there was another word other than Satanist.
Yes.
I've
Mm-hmm.
always felt that Satan was a Christian deity that lives in the Bible that I was supposed to fear." Yeah, but I would say the calling it Satanism was pretty intentional, and it's because the fact of the matter is that in the 20th century United States, and still today, the most recognized adversarial figure in mythology, in the zeitgeist, is Satan. Now, it's possible that all the principles of Satanism could have been, codified and put together in a past century in a different country, in a different culture. Somebody, in theory, could have, put together a religion that is about the carnal, not the spiritual, and everything else reflected in the nine satanic statements and so on, and named it after some other adversarial deity at the time. But the fact of the matter is, it was made in 20th century America, and Satan is the appropriate bad guy for that.
And it's so funny because even Anton knew this, that every culture had a devil. He just had a
Yeah,
different name.
yeah, that's something we incorporate also in the infernal names.
Exactly. So definitely recommend doing research and see what resonates with you. I know Satanists that, are more into Zoroastrianism because of, Ahriman
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's really interesting. Um, I don't shame them. I mean, that's just what resonates more with them. Maybe it was the artwork,
Yeah,
what their belief was at that time. It just, but it's incorporated because Anton was always about learning, and he really did kind of broaden our horizons, I feel.
yeah. Well, especially
J-
with just the satanic rituals, like that book has examples of
yeah,
all different, satanically appropriate things you can do with mythology from all sorts of different cultures. And
yeah, and there's great things that you can incorporate into your daily life from these things.
mhm.
Um, let's see. JD says, Kirkpatrick, Satan and his angels were cast out of heaven due to their allegiance to God and their refusal to break the rules.
Or at least that's what Milton's Paradise Lost says. There's actually no biblical basis at all for this belief of Satan being a fallen angel. There is a one line about Lucifer that gets misinterpreted
Very
as falling,
misconstrued.
yeah, falling from heaven, which isn't really about a person called Lucifer at all. You can look at the original Hebrew. It's in a book of Isaiah. There's a line about Hail, Hallel, something like that, Heyel, Hebrew word for the morning star,
Right.
falling from the sky, which is the planet Venus descending in the night sky. And somehow this came and evolved into this whole notion of Lucifer being a fallen angel and all this stuff. I mean, the thing I notice Christians do is they assume that the serpent from the Garden of Eden, Satan from the Old Testament, the devil, Beelzebul, the beast, are all assumed to be the same character. And there really isn't any basis for that, even if you read the Bible in and of itself. So,
It's all speculation at the end of the day. um, let's see. Todd says, whenever I come across someone who is ignorant on their soapbox, I revel in asking them, tell me what you know about Satanism, vegetarianism,
yeah,
Islam,
yeah,
etc.
yeah.
I love that.
You may get somebody who says they're all the same thing.
Right. JD says, is Lucifer a Christian?
A Christian? Well, it depends on who or what you mean by Lucifer. There's a couple of notions of Lucifer in mythology.
Mm-hmm.
But Lucifer, a Christian. If you're talking about within the Christian mythos,
Dichotomy.
is this character that is part of it, is he Christian just in the same way as is the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz a believer in the Emerald City? Yeah, okay, but that's what your point is.
Well, and you also have to remember, the Book of Fables by Man, um, that Lucifer existed before Christ. So, how
Mm,
exactly could he have been
yeah.
a Christian if Jesus wasn't even on earth yet?
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
kind of thing. So, I would say, nah,
yeah.
when it comes
So
to
yeah,
that
it
mythos.
was So the word Lucifer came when Saint Jerome was translating the Old Testament from Hebrew to Latin, and he came across that word for the morning star, and he used Lucifer, lowercase l, which means bringer of light. And then by the
Mm-hmm.
King James version, that became a capital L, and I guess people's imagination took off from there. I have heard notions about Lucifer being a pagan god, being a pre-Christian thing with the same name. I don't know enough detail about that.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, I know that within Satanism, we use Lucifer not just for the fact it's part of the zeitgeist and a recognized name and all that. So there's an emotional power to that, but also Lucifer as the bringer of light is representing that aspect of enlightenment and so on. We have that reflected in the 4 books of the Satanic Bible, as well as in the 4 directions. Satan is fire. We start off with the book of Satan. It's a passionate diatribe about that, and then we get into the book of Lucifer, which is the thinking part, the philosophy, the
Wisdom.
enlightenment that way. Yeah, wisdom. Yeah, and then it's a book of Belial, master of the earth, so representing the earth element, the grounding, the mastery of the earth, and all that. And then you get to Leviathan, the serpent of the watery abyss, element of water, and you have the archetypes with that of the the unconsciousness, subconsciousness as well, and the the motion, the raging sea as it is. So
you gotta do your research, people.
yeah, but I mean, this is also an example
You
of
know?
how we can be like, we are atheists, but yeah, you can take these archetypes, these mythology things, these Jungian things that resonate with people, and use them in a materialistic way.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Once you get the concept of what you know, you whatever you get from it, if it helps you, I dare say to be a better Satanist, but if it's something that just resonates with you and feels good, there's nothing wrong with that because wisdom is wisdom. I mean, it's everywhere. It's you know what I mean? So, oh, this is good. Todd says the movie The Exorcist scared the heaven out of me and caused me to associate Satanism with this movie. I thought that this is who Satanists conjure to attack Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish. Where is Pazuzu? I want to hang out with him. I want to buy him a drink.
Yeah, I ran a website many years ago. I talked about this, I think, recently on Satan's Plane, called Hollywood, which was based around the film list we have on the Church of Satan. We've published it in books, and it's on the website, the Church of Satan suggested film list. And I've had people email me saying, I don't understand why The Exorcist isn't on the list. It's like, well, it doesn't really have anything to do with Satanism. It's based on the Christian superstition about demonic possession and stuff like that. And it's fine if you're a Satanist who enjoys the movie. You can, enjoy it for just being a great horror movie and a great thriller.
Yeah.
You can even enjoy the devilish trappings and all that if you like. But yeah, not something we have in our suggested list for.
No, it's a very dark, blasphemous piece of carnal candy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really exemplify anything about Satanism. Todd says, "What about Rosemary's Baby?"
Now, Rosemary's Baby is on the list, and I think the reasons for that are multiple. First of all, Anton LaVey had a part in helping out with it. Whether he really played the scene with him playing the devil, it seems like the jury's still kind of out on that. But what about that scene, 1966, Hail the Year One, or whatever, the line is. And I think what's kind of most, if there is kind of a satanic aspect of that, it is the idea that the, quote unquote, Satanist is not, that it could be somebody that's your neighbor, and not necessarily a group of these people who only meet in a dark cave somewhere, So I think there's something to be said, satanically about that. And not to mention that the whole suspicion was that they were going to sacrifice the child, and it's not that at all.
Oh, now that's an interesting question. Do you feel satanic heretics exist?
Heretics exist? No, it depends on how you're defining heretic. There are certainly pseudo Satanists, I would say.
That's
people who,
you read my mind.
Yeah, people who think they understand Satanism, but clearly don't. Again, the people who style themselves after Christian propaganda and think that that's, oh, this must be what Satanism is. It's not. We do have the 9 satanic sins and 11 rules of the earth, but it's when you break those, it's not like you have to confess your sins to somebody, or you're immediately, cast out, or you have to repent. But, we have guidelines on what is and what isn't Satanism. Otherwise, the term would be useless if there was no way to distinguish them.
No, it's not that kind of club, folks. We ain't gonna kick you out just because you didn't adhere to the rules. That's a purely Christian thing.
But we do get people who think they understand Satanism and then completely miss the boat on something. Or you have some of these people who get it into their heads. It's like, well, to be, truly satanic, I have to go throw away the rules and have to do my own thing, because if you're following rules, then you're being a conformist. And it's like, again, Satanism is not doing anything you want whenever you want. There's some defining things of what Satanism is and isn't. There has to be some kind of consistency and structure to it, or again, it would be a useless term otherwise.
Absolutely. It's not a get out of jail free card. We don't tell people to go commit heinous crimes or anything like that. It's not satanic at all. Basically, at the end of the day, be a good fucking human. But if somebody fucks with you, you gotta get them back.
Yeah,
that's the nature of the beast. Mm-hmm. Well, man, I'll tell you what, it has been awesome, and I love.
Hour flew by.
All these interesting comments that you get all across social media. And I'm sure a lot of us also can identify with that, as many people, that have been out in the comment section, which you guys have been fucking awesome, as always, have also been under some similar ridicule. So hopefully, I feel, Magister Bill M has definitely given you some great tools to kind of, shiv it back a little bit to the point where they end up questioning themselves, or they're just complete assholes and they still think they're right. That may be so, but at the end of the day, they're wrong. So fucking wrong. And which is also quite interesting that, they don't adhere to their own book. The part that really got me was the atheists that were commenting towards you. And it just goes to show you that there are just idiots across the board.
Yeah. And, merely not believing in a deity, it's a good step, but, there's more to it than that. It's not a guarantee also of, that you're a smart person. So, and I think this also answers another question we always get. Well, if you're atheist, why don't you just say you're an atheist, or, and not a Satanist? It's like, well, you see some of those examples. I'm not that,
Exactly. And I want to thank you so much for coming back on. I definitely want you to come back. It is always a blast. My gut hurts from laughing, which is always a good thing. It's been the dark theme for the week, people.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I got to give a quick plug, though. If you like laughing and you like blasphemy, definitely check out latest episode of The Devil's Mischief. So I'm celebrating 20 years of that podcast. And
so excited for you.
It's on that. When I started the show, I didn't play exclusively religion bashing stuff, because I think might get old if I played that every single week, every hour. But what I did do was, when I hit the first year anniversary of the show back in 2004, I took all the religion bashing material from the past year, put them in 2 1-hour episodes. And so what I'm doing now to kick off the 20th anniversary celebrations is I'm putting all of those together. I get enough of those to fill like 15 to 20 CDs, but we're going to start off with it's close to 2 hours of just great religion bashing stuff. And
I mean, I can't get enough of it.
There'll be more to come, but
absolutely. So check out Satan's Plane. It's on YouTube. It is not hard to find. Fucking informative, hilarious, all at the same time. It's definitely my favorite podcast to listen to. And I have been going back with the Devil's Mischief also, and checking that stuff out as well, which you should. And where can people find that one in particular?
Go to devilsmischief.com or go to radiofreesatan.com. Devil's Mischief is part of Radio Free Satan. So there's a bunch of other podcasts too made by Satanists that are there. So.
Fantastic. It's at your fingertips, people. Go check it out. You will get a lot out of it. If anything, if you're having a bad day and somebody, done pissed you off, in any of these similar situations, it's definitely going to make you feel good. So thank you so much. Thank you, Church of Satan as well. And so as we are getting ready to go into Thursday, the last day before Friday, with visions of Christians getting stomped on by a cloven-hoofed figure known as the devil, you must always stay heavy.